lady killer fragrances. If you want to attract the female gaze with fragrances, there are a few options you can choose from, starting with one of my personal favorites, Tobacolor from Dior. Tobacolor, this is, if you're serious, this is a very heavy fragrance, a very kind of more mature, more sophisticated, more direct fragrance, because it is very strong. It's, from the name you can guess, it is a tobacco forward fragrance. Besides that, some people are wary of, smoky tobacco fragrances because they might be too harsh, and it is true that a lot of tobacco fragrances are too harsh, but not this one. Dior, unsurprisingly, has pulled off making this fragrance very smooth, very balanced. It is smoky, it has that tobacco note, but it's kind of almost a creamy sort of smokiness, and of course it's blended with other notes to make it very nice and balanced. And despite that, it is still a very strong fragrance, so you do have to be aware of that. It's better for the evening or for colder weather, but in general it's a really, really good fragrance, really kind of a seductive fragrance. Then, on a much lighter note, is Valentino Uomo. So this primarily has notes of leather, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of roasted coffee beans. Despite those heavy notes, this is more of a moderate fragrance. It's not super heavy, not as heavy as Tobacolor, for instance. This is still kind of a nice balance between lighter fragrances, because it does have a nice citrusy opening, and then heavier fragrances, so it's kind of this intermediary. Moderate longevity, moderate projection, but still a very kind of smooth, low, grounded fragrance, which is very nice for both the daytime and the evening. And in general, it's just pleasant. It has a little touch of sweetness from the chocolate, but it's more of a dark chocolate note, so it's a more kind of earthy. Then, this is unisex Oud Satin Mood from Maison Kurkdjian. This is a delicious fragrance for both men and women, in the fact that it uses oud, which is a very luxurious wood note, mixed with rose. And some men are wary of wearing anything rosy, but this rose is not sweet, it's not really feminine, and when it's mixed with the oud, which is kind of musky, it creates this very wonderful kind of smooth, musky, slightly floral sort of fragrance. It's a very powerful fragrance as well. It'll last easily all day, and the oud really sticks to the skin because it is such a strong note just on its own, and then it's really counteracted and lightened up with the rose note, which creates a really just wonderful fragrance, a unique fragrance, because first of all, oud is a rare note, and you'll usually only find it in very luxurious fragrances, which this is, but it's made even more unique when you mix it with something light and floral and fresh, like rose. I think it's specifically Turkish rose, but I can't be for sure. But just those two notes alone together make a really extremely unique sort of fragrance. And this, I haven't smelled anything that comes even close to this, because it's really that special. So if you really want to, stand out from the crowd, wear something very different, this is a great option. Then, if you want something more refreshing, crisp, light, you could go for Xerjoff, which is 40 knots. So from the name 40 knots, you can guess. This is a marine fragrance, a very coastal, ocean-side sort of fragrance, and pretty much as soon as you smell it, you get the saltiness, you get the kind of sea spray, aquatic notes. And I believe there's also a little bit of citrus thrown in there. This is the yacht guy fragrance. This is the, going to the beach, summertime, fresh fragrance. And despite all that, it's also very, very luxurious. Like, as soon as you smell it, this is different from your other typical aquatic marine fragrances. And Xerjoff is a very luxurious brand just on its own. And it's just pleasant to wear. You know, if it's a hot day, humid, or just hot in general, this is really good for freshening up. It's not super strong because it is meant to be a lighter fragrance, so you might have to reapply it throughout the day. But just wearing it in general on a hot day is great. You'll feel refreshed immediately, and it's just pleasant, you know? When you smell it on someone else, it's a very attractive fragrance. Then, the last fragrance that I have on my list is Dior Homme Intense, or Intense. So, there are several variations of Dior Homme, and they're all good. They're all really good. They all have, well, most of them have an iris note, including this one. And I really like the iris note because I think it really smooths out some of the other notes that these fragrances have, because otherwise they might be a little too plain, a little too light, or too much of something else. But the iris really, it's in the middle notes, so it really grounds the fragrance, brings everything together. Specifically the intense version I'm mentioning because it's stronger than the other Dior Hommes, which makes it good for especially the evening, but also you could wear it during the daytime. So it's not too strong, but it's not too light. Then, another reason why I mentioned the intense version is I personally think it has more complexity compared to the other versions because it has kind of more contrasting notes. Besides the iris, it has something called ambrette, or muskmallow, which is a very unique sort of course, musky fragrance. A little bit lighter than typical musk. It also has a little bit of pear to make it, of course, quite crisp, slightly fruity, but most of all refreshing. The top notes are lavender, which is pretty faint, but it is still there. The main floral note here is the iris. Then also you have cedar and vetiver, and of course that's going to ground the fragrance and make it quite warm and just kind of more of a cozy, yet still intriguing, kind of mysterious fragrance. I kind of find it a little bit similar to Dior Sauvage. Of course, they're from the same brand, so it's expected for them to be slightly similar, but that's also, I mean, Dior Sauvage obviously is very famous, but this is a good alternative, and it's very pleasant. I myself wear it sometimes because I like it so much. Everything about it is very, very attractive. Makes it attractive for daytime wear, nighttime wear, you know. Basically, you could wear this anytime, anywhere. It's just a good fragrance, a reliable fragrance, and it's a very good performer. It lasts quite a long time, probably minimum 7 hours, probably more than that. And good projection, you know. It goes around the room, but it's not screaming. It wafts, you know. So this is a good, reliable fragrance that I think most people enjoy, both men and women. And that is the end of my list. So if you have anything to say about these fragrances, you can always leave those opinions down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.